Is a superior and inferior relationship. If someone slaps you on the, if you are slapped on the right cheek, so if you get slapped on the right cheek, he says offer him the other one. Why would he say that? Because he wants you to be hit again? No. If you understand that in those days you could only hit an inferior with a backhanded, or if you punched him, you would elevate him to the status of a equal. So when he says, offer him the other cheek, it makes it impossible for your oppressor to hit you because he'd have to use his left hand for the other cheek. And your left hand is a dirty hand or a hand for unclean business, and you would never use it to strike another person back in the days. So the only option you're giving your oppressor, he can't use his left hand. He can't backhand you with his right hand because that's the cheek you've given. You're giving the left hand and you can't backhand it. So he says to us, or Link presupposes, that we ask people to call us an equal and take the consequences. Now that wouldn't necessarily have stopped a beating. Your oppressor may decide to treat you like an equal and beat you. But all the people in the town would see that you treated him as an equal, and that elevated him. And you wouldn't do that. So really it's a creative way to take back your dignity and say, no, if you're going to hit me, you're going to treat me like an equal. And that's why you offer the other cheek, because he can't possibly backhand you again with the other cheek. So it's very creative. And it clearly says that no, we're not expected to take it, but we are expected to stop it. We are expected to use creative, but nonviolent. He doesn't say fight or flight. This is a third way. It's a creative way that puts your oppressor in a quandary, and he has to choose to either elevate you to the status of equal, or he walks away. You didn't fight and you didn't flight. This is a third way. Link makes similar points about other sayings in the Bible, but they all come to this. Jesus advocated for nonviolent responses. He did not advocate passivity and the continuation of oppressive systems. We advocate because my Catholic beliefs tell me to do so. But virtually every other faith religion has traditions that speak to advocating for people who are impoverished, talk about standing in solidarity, talk about good work situations, people deserve a right to work. Most faith traditions are similar, and they all talk about people having a right to live as their God would have intended them. Advocacy suggests speaking truth to power, bringing the needs of those who are marginalized to people who have the power to create change. And that's what we have to do. Martin Luther King said in his Nobel Acceptance Prize that it is taking root within you when you look at that hungry child in the street or the mother with kids at the pantry and you see your own daughter or grandchild. And you can no longer give only a piece of bread. You ache inside because you want to know why that child is hungry. You, like Martin Luther King, know that the agony of the poor diminishes the rich, and the salvation of the poor enlarges the wealthy. Poverty doesn't exist due to bad choices, bad habits, or even a bad illness. Poverty exists because we have bad systems. We have bad structures, and we can only change those in the legislative process. These injustices that we've witnessed throughout our life today, throughout the world today, call for action. And you may just find yourself, like Rosa Parks and a bunch of nuns at Network, that you need to get on a bus. And that's what we did. The Nuns on the Bus was founded really as a nonviolent, responsive action to what we perceived as an injustice. What happened was, in the early year, about March, late March, early April, Paul Ryan put forth a budget and the budget just decimated social programming. It took away food stamps, it made Medicaid a block grant, it took away Pell Grants. It basically robbed the lower working class and the poor or the impoverished class of anything that the government had provided for them, or it marginalized it considerably more. He went on to say that he believed that this was consistent with his Catholic faith. We thought, how is that consistent? Name the Catholic social justice teaching that that's consistent with. So what we did was got together with many, many faith groups in the DC area. We had every faith group possibly imaginable, and we wrote our own budget. We called it a faithful budget. And we tacked issues such as immigration and health care. And we went through everything, and we fought. I mean, you have to understand, we had Jewish people in the room, we had Hindus, we had Catholics. There were some conversations we couldn't even have because they were so volatile. But we stayed in the room, and we finished it. And the faithful budget was, in fact, written. So after the faithful budget was written, we're strategizing, how do we get this out? How do we get people to know about this budget versus the alternative budget? And then in April, we had our 40th anniversary. Network was started by 46 Catholic nuns about 50 years ago. 40 years ago, we had our 40th anniversary. Woo! But we were meeting and we were saying, what do we do new now? You know, we have come together, we were born because we knew that charity had its limits. We need to change the structures. What do we do? So what do we do? How do we get our name out there? How do we get more people on board? How do we do this? So we had our party, and we're going to think about this some more. And 2 days later, the Vatican assessment came out. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. That was an assessment that came from the Vatican, and it basically called the LCWR, the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, into question. It said that they spent too much time working with the poor. They didn't speak out enough with respect to abortion. Basically, they felt they spent too much time in action and not as much evangelism, is kind of a generalization of it. Within this document, they were also chastised for the relationship with a suspect group, Network. It's pretty amazing when you think about that. We are a staff of 12, 3 are college kids. So that the Vatican knows us. How many people? It was a surprise to us. We were actually amazed. Now, your first response when you're hearing that this is publicly done to you and you didn't hear anything about it, we were angry. I would be a liar if I sat here and said we weren't. We were very angry. More so, we were confused. We were like, again, the 12 of us? I mean, we think of ourselves as the dirty dozen, and we've got the Vatican. So we didn't know what we did because the statement, the assessment doesn't say so. It just says LCWR is being looked at for that suspect group, Network. So many people in the faith community in DC called us. They descended upon our office, and it was just, they came and they said to us, don't react. You want to react. People want to scream. Actually, it was people of other faiths that wanted to react more so than us. They wanted to stick up for their sisters. But, you know, they sat down and they said, let's seize the moral initiative here. What can we do with this newfound publicity? So Simone went to the Heads of Washington office, and that's where all the, like Ron Pollock of Families USA, it's the bigger president's group of all the activists in Washington, D.C. She went there, and she asked them for help. So we all got into a room, and we strategized. We gathered our support, and we looked to find an alternative. Some people did want to whack them, but we looked for the alternative to violence, because it isn't our way.